Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Bare and Brutal podcast, the podcast where we bare our feelings and are brutally honest while highlighting stories of resilience and transforming pain into power. I'm your host, Michelle, and today we are honored to have such a remarkable guest with us. Robyn Gutierrez is a behavior analyst and trauma informed breathwork coach. She is dedicated to supporting women through breathwork, helping them discover self-love, self-compassion, and their true purpose, which are all things that I know I need. Her journey has just been incredible. She has come from a traumatic upbringing, including surviving domestic violence, to finding her passion for breath work and healing. And it's just truly inspiring. She's doing such important work with community, and it's an honor to highlight her resilience and her dedication. So please join me in welcoming Robyn to the show.
Oh my
Hi,
goodness.
Robyn.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for having me and for introducing me that way. It feels
Yes.
really good. Yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's exactly who
Yeah.
you are, and I love that you reached out to me and wanted to be on the show. I say this every episode, but I just get so giddy when people want to come on here and share their stories with us. So, thank you for that. I'd love it if you could share a bit about your background and how you came to specialize in this world of breath work. I know a bit about your background. We had our meeting, but please outline for the audience.
Yeah, I would love to. And thank you for having me. I love what you're doing here. I think it's so important. And I love your podcast. So I'm honored to be here. And a little bit about me. I mean, the way you said it covers so much. I was like, oh, wow, that's me. Oh my gosh, I forgot all these things. Or like, we don't stop to celebrate the wins or like how much we've grown often enough. So when I hear it in like a paragraph
Right.
form like that, I'm like, damn, I am kind of badass,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So I have spent the majority of my career as a board certified behavior analyst. I was working with the autistic community. I was loving what I did. However, as I moved up and I moved into like senior leadership positions and I moved into management, I was really kind of disconnected from my purpose, from my why, because for me, my
Mm-hmm.
mission in this world is to help others. Like I'm a helper, I'm a healer. I'm here to connect with people. And while I was doing that in those roles in some capacity, there was this part of me that was missing. And it was like so hard to even identify or define because, you know, I'm a grown up, right? I'm a grown woman,
Yeah.
went to grad school, had this job, and I would just wake up and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not fulfilled. There's like something missing. And it was so hard to
Mm-hmm.
define. And so I just went on this, you know, I call it my healing journey. I think that resonates probably with a lot of listeners because I think we're starting to say that more and more in our everyday, right? We're all kind of healing.
Mm-hmm.
We're healing our childhood trauma. We're healing our adult trauma. We're healing from life and learning how to live. And for me, I was so, I think because I had gone through so many things and I was just one of those people that was like, okay, on to the next. Like, it is what it is. Put on your big girl pants and just
Yeah.
move on to the next thing. I never really stopped to heal those things. So, like, even chatting with you in our
Mm.
meeting, I haven't really talked about my childhood stuff until now.
Yeah.
But like, that was huge. And, you know, and then I went into, um, college and did the things society told me I was supposed to do. And then I got married and I got divorced with an infant baby. And
Mm.
just, I felt really lost and afraid. And like between all of that, I had an emergency surgery. My mom's house burned down in a
Mm.
fire. Like life had just really like slapped me, right? Like lifed me, but I just
Yeah.
kept going. And so it was really in the last 5 years that I was like, okay, my anxiety is very high. I was trying to self-diagnose myself so I could get medicated because that's
Mm-hmm.
what everyone's doing. It's just getting medicine. And I had an
Yeah.
amazing doctor actually who said no. She said no to me. She was like, "You don't have anxiety. You have anxious thoughts." And she was like the first person to put that
Mm.
bug in my ear. And that got me really curious about starting to explore my mindset to see if it was just my thoughts that were keeping me anxious or if I actually had anxiety. And so I just started going down rabbit holes, if you will, that were exciting and things that got me curious about acceptance and commitment therapy, breath work, all of the things that I do now. I really immersed myself in to heal myself.
Mm-hmm.
And once I saw the power of that, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm meant to do here.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to share with people.
Wow. And just, well, one, I resonate so deeply with constantly being in go mode, just focusing on surviving, like what's next. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I spoke about my experience a bit with you too. And, you know, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I got to deal with this. And so I love just hearing the courage that you had to take a moment and say, okay, something's going on here. I need to deal with this, cuz I feel like people, it's so much easier to go along in your life and ignore this really hard pain, this pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to self-medicate or to numb
Mm-hmm.
those feelings and dive deep into it and immerse yourself like you have. So we're gonna unpack a lot of things there that you
Okay.
just outlined for us. Let's go back to the moment where you realized, man, I went through some tough stuff as a child. Because I'll give some context to listeners. When we had our initial consultation, um, in the middle of it, you started telling me your story, and you said, "Yeah, I realized recently that I am, you know, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and I didn't realize this until now." And you shared with me that you hadn't said that out loud really to anyone,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a very fresh realization for you. So can you walk me through what it was like, just realizing that you went through something like that, and processing it, and how did you deal with this tough realization that, man, I went through that and it affected me a lot?
Yeah. Well, you summarized it so beautifully. I mean, I think that what is true for me in thinking about my childhood and the abuse that I endured is like, I think that's why I've lived my life on autopilot. I think that's why I continue
Mm-hmm.
to just I continue to just be like, okay, what's the next thing, and not really celebrate the
Right.
win or the accomplishment. It's like, okay, I did that. Now what? Now what? Now what? Because my body was actually in that fight or flight mode. So my nervous
Mm.
system was completely dysregulated. So I think because I don't ever want to say I'm healed, right? Because I think there's always something. And in fact, when I
Yeah.
started my breathwork facilitation program, I thought I was healed. You know, I thought I was healed from all of my trauma, my past wounds. And whew, that opened up a lot of like cans, right? Because our
Yeah.
body holds on to it. Our body actually remembers. And so when you go into more of a subconscious state of mind, through breath work or through whatever healing modality works for you, your body can actually bring up these memories or like start to process them. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I've kind of gotten away from your question, like your original question, but that's what kind of came up for me immediately was like, I think that because I'm more healed. I'm a more healed version of myself now. It's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
easier to process because maybe I was avoiding. I was like just suppressing that memory or moving on or forgetting
Yeah.
about it and just like, well, I'm safe now, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you'd like, can you share a bit about your childhood and some of those challenges that you faced growing up?
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually think about our conversation quite often too, because it was when you shared your experience with gun violence that
Mm.
I not remembered, like I've obviously remembered that I had been exposed to gun violence, but it did make me feel safe to kind of talk about it. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing your truth and your story too. So I come from a divorced family, and my mom had a partner for most of my childhood. So my parents divorced when I was almost 6 years old. And there was this man, my mom's partner, who was in our life, and he wasn't abusive right away. I think he was pretty, he meets the definition of a narcissist, right? So I think he wooed us and wowed us and saved us and did all of the things in the very beginning. And he was in my life until I was 19. So it was a good amount of my childhood, right? But it wasn't until, I don't know. And so even this is like kind of blurry. I don't know exactly when the abuse started, but I would say it was probably about maybe 10 to 12 years old, my pre-adolescent years, where he started just being pretty abusive. And he was a very unhealed man. He had gone through a lot of trauma himself. He was a paraplegic. He just had a lot of hate, right, in his heart. And so he took that out on my mom, my sister, myself. And it started with just kind of verbal abuse. And over the years, it moved into threats with involving guns. And, luckily my mom got out of there too. We helped get her out and get her safe. Talk about resilience. My mom is like one of the most resilient women I have ever met in my entire life. She has been through so much. But that was like a huge part of our childhood, was like dealing with this man who had so much hate and anger and didn't know where to, how to take that out in the right ways. And so took it out on his family in ways that were really unsafe and harmful and dangerous and were traumatic, to all of us who were involved.
Yeah. So I'm listening to you, and it sounds like you have a lot of understanding and compassion for him, in that the actions that he carried out were as a result of his own unhealed trauma and the hate that he had. But I'm curious, how did this experience shape your own compassion for yourself and the love that you have for yourself?
Love that question. And I think it's like so recent, to be honest, because for so many years, I didn't actually realize the like residual effects of that type of trauma and abuse, because some of the things, the ways that manifested for me was not having a voice, showing up and doing what I'm told, being quiet, listening to what anyone tells me to do without question. And so I think I lived like most of my early adult life, like let's say my 20s, that way, that I do what I told. I have a lot of self-doubt. I'm not allowed to speak up. And so because of that abuse, I think it manifested in that way. So it wasn't until recent healing journey that I really started to learn about compassion and holding myself with compassion. And I'm glad you picked up on that, because we have no contact with this man and we never want to, obviously. But I do feel that way about people in this world, is like when people are treating other people this terribly, it's always a reflection of their own internal wounds, their trauma, their hate for themselves, their hate of the world. And that's why I'm like, can we all just like do a little bit of work so that we can show up and treat ourselves so much better, hold ourselves with kindness and compassion, so that ripples out into the world. And I know, call me crazy, right? Because I know that the world there's a lot, right? It's a dark place right now. But right, if we can all do a little bit of internal work on ourselves, can you imagine the ripple effect?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we're all, I feel like we have a lot of broken people. And it makes me think of, I think personally to my mom and my grandma, and the kind of generational trauma that was passed down. And it makes me think of how they didn't have the kind of resources that we have now. I mean, I'm not sure that they would have even gone to a breathwork coach if they had the resources back then. But it's beautiful that now we are responsible. We have resources and we are taking advantage of them. And people like you who are, I mean, it is being more open now in mainstream media, like the concept of healing and trauma. But I feel like sometimes it can be a bit of a buzzword
Mm-hmm.
and people don't actually do the work. So I love that you are focused really on helping women too, and focusing on that compassion, self love aspect of things, because I think as women, that's a pretty common experience where we just do what we're told. We shut up. We don't want to cause any trouble. We don't want to be angry or have any emotions because then you're just being a woman. So
Mm-hmm.
I would love it if you could maybe talk more about that. And can you explain how breath work comes into play when we are wanting to, I guess, grow our compassion and love for ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I always say that self-love, self-compassion, it's the foundation. Everything else that you want will fall into place from here if we love ourselves and treat ourselves with kindness and compassion. And the reason that I love supporting women in particular is because I think, in addition to everything that you just shared, we tend to be really harsh to ourselves, right? We beat ourselves up.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do is not good enough. Comparison culture gets in the way. And so, if we can really treat ourselves with kindness and compassion, then everything else is just better. And so the way that I think breath work comes in and helps to facilitate or help to foster this is when you learn to quiet that voice, when you learn to sit with that voice and hear the messages. One of the powerful things I love about breath work is sometimes what's accessible to people who breathe with me is they can come into contact with their highest self, which is them, right? But it's like their highest and best
Mm-hmm.
energy. And I can't tell you how many times I've had breathers share visualizations that they've had where they've met this highest version of themselves, and this highest version of themselves gave them wisdom or a message or reminded them that they're on the right track. And it just creates this connection between the mind and the body, because we live so much in our
Mm-hmm.
mind, and our mind also tells us things that aren't true, that aren't helpful. But when we actually drop in and start to feel in our body instead of avoid or suppress or self-medicate or find other distractions, we can process those emotions. It actually only takes 90 seconds to process an uncomfortable emotion. But if you suppress
Mm.
or avoid or, just don't sit with it, your body still stores it. Like, yeah, you might not remember, but your subconscious mind does, because your subconscious mind's job is to try to protect you and keep you safe. So thinking about my example and my
Yeah.
upbringing and my childhood is like, anytime there's been conflict in my life, my subconscious was like, fear, right? Like alert, alert, there's
Yeah.
danger. Do something to avoid this situation because you've been here before and you
Yeah.
don't want to go here again. And so therefore, the way that I actually showed up and responded in the 3D version of myself is like trying to smooth something over or agree with something I didn't agree with, or just do anything I could to
Mm.
avoid that conflict because my body knew there's danger here, instead of processing that and
Yeah.
learning like, oh no, you actually have a voice, your opinion matters, and you're allowed to speak. You don't have to agree
Yeah.
with everyone. Everyone doesn't have to agree with you, and it's okay, but we can have some healthy conflict too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hearing you talk about how that showed up for you in conflict really hits home for me because
Yeah.
I think of times I feel like I actually reacted in a different way. Instead of avoiding, I turned to what it's like flight or flight and
Mm-hmm.
fawn, or
Mm-hmm.
freeze. And so
Yeah.
for me, I felt like I went to fawn. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would just go into people pleasing mode. I'd be like, yeah, you're right. Like whatever you need, like tell me what you need and I'll do it to make this better. And that was definitely a direct response. Like as a child, little Michelle
Mm-hmm.
wanted acceptance. Little Michelle
Yeah.
wanted, I didn't want you to be mad at me, and so
Mm-hmm.
that was a huge thing, having to learn that. it's okay for someone to be mad at you, or
You're right.
maybe it wasn't even your fault in the first place.
Yeah.
But I found myself constantly thinking, oh my gosh, everything's my fault. Like, I need to do something to make this better. Like, I'm the worst person. I'm not enough. It's because of this that we're in this situation or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do you begin to approach a client that you're working with who has these, I guess, struggles or challenges with conflict? Like, how does breath work help them deal with conflict and begin to grow out of avoidance or out of people pleasing?
Yeah. And I'd love to answer that. And I think I can also kind of combine it with what you were just talking about related to kind of what little Michelle needed. Like we all have this inner child that had needs that like
Mm-hmm.
there was a rupture or a need wasn't met. And so one of the powerful things about breath work, I talked about some of my breathers meet this version of their highest self. Well, another thing that can be accessible for breathers is being with their inner child and being able to comfort that inner child or tell that inner child something that maybe they wish that version of them heard back then. And so the
Mm-hmm.
way that I can help breathers move through this kind of trauma is one, through collaboration. So, what I do is very trauma informed. So, what's important to
Mm-hmm.
me, the number one thing that's important to me is safety and trust. So, it's a process and breath work is a practice. So, I don't want anyone out there who hears this think like, oh, I just do one breath work session and I'm healed. No,
Yeah.
it's a practice, right? And so, we get to build a relationship and people start to share with me some of their wounds or some of their trauma, and we can start to set intentions to breathe through those things and allow the body to process that. But we do that in a way that
Mm-hmm.
feels safe and supportive for the breather. So I have, a variety of different people I breathe with, and no one session is ever the same. It's all very individualized
Mm-hmm.
and unique. But I'd say the one thing to kind of answer your question is self-trust is a huge part of what's built as breathers continue to engage in this type of practice. So I have
Mm-hmm.
one breather who started with me, and I had asked her, like on our very first session, like, what is your intention? What brought you to breath work? And she was very open, and she said, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm open to trying something. I have a lot of trauma. I just want to feel better, not in terms of like just feeling happy. I just want to feel better. And what she meant by that was she wanted
Yeah.
to process all of the emotions that she was either avoiding or kind of shying away from, or that the body was holding on to that maybe she didn't actually remember. And we're, 6 months in now, and she's having visualizations and meeting her highest self, talking to her inner child, being in places that keep her calm and safe and supported. And I would say, like, the number one thing I see for her is self trust. She truly believes in herself now. She's not questioning
Mm-hmm.
like what she's doing or why, or asking for reassurance or someone else to say like, yeah, you're doing a great job. She comes in and she's like, I know, like, I'm badass. Like, I've got this. And so I
Yeah.
just love seeing like that development over time, but it's taken a while because it's a process and a practice.
Yeah. No, I love that you highlighted that aspect, that it is a process, because I think we live in a world where we want instant gratification, we want instant results. And I think you have to be ready to go
Mm-hmm.
into your healing process, and you have to be willing for it to be like a long haul thing, and so many people are looking for a quick fix and realize, oh, this is actually really hard and
Yeah.
scary, and
Yeah.
this is going to take actual work, and they avoid it. So
Right.
how would you, I mean, I guess a lot of your clients are coming and they're in that space, right? They're willing to
Mm-hmm.
work. Have you ran into any clients who are a bit skeptical about the practice, or maybe you're having to help guide them through something when they're not really, they don't have much buy-in to it?
So I've had some people come to me and they're like, okay, listen, I'm open, but like, I don't really believe that this is going to be effective. And I've also
Mm-hmm.
had people who um, are curious. They're like, okay, I'm interested and like, I'm going to crack the door open slightly, but I don't want to do it. Like, no, breathwork's
Yeah.
not for me. That's too woo woo. It's too witchy. Like, no thanks. Or skepticism in terms of like, mm, you just want me to breathe? Like, you just want me to take a breath? It's like, no, yes and no. But I think what's really important to say about that is, like you were saying, that we, in the society that we live in, we're looking for the next kind of quick fix. We also are looking for
Mm-hmm.
like the sparkly thing. And in a lot of ways, like, what if we just go back to the basics? Like, we're not breathing the way that our
Yeah.
bodies are intended to breathe. In fact, if you know, if you're listening to this and you're like, let me actually just pay attention to my breath, notice, like, is it shallow, is it rapid, are you taking full breaths in? And I would wager to say, like, probably not. Like, most of the time we're not breathing the
Mm-hmm.
correct way. So if we can just go back to the basics and retrain our body for like how to take in a breath, how to allow the diaphragm to expand, the lungs to fill up with air, to release it, and start making a mind body connection, it's
Mm-hmm.
the transformation is there for you. It's like at your fingertips, but it's easier done with a
Yeah.
guide, because a lot of people, another thing that they're skeptical about is the overlap between meditation and breath work. And I get a lot of
Mm.
like, oh, I've tried meditation. Meditation doesn't work for me. My mind is too chattery. Well, yeah, that is why meditation is really challenging for people who are brand new to the practice, because our mind actually never stops thinking. I mean, I would dare you to try. Like, try to close your eyes and not think about anything. And there's no way that
Yeah.
that's possible. Um, so, yeah, what was I saying? I don't know. I lost track of my own thoughts. But basically, breath work is, it's basic, but it's so powerful. Oh, I was talking about the overlap between meditation and breath work. So the difference is, while there's a meditative aspect to breath work, as a facilitator, it's my job to kind of keep you from having a wandering mind by guiding you
Mm-hmm.
vocally and with music and with prompts and with cues, so that you can kind of quiet the mind, which doesn't always happen during a meditation, because meditation is meant to be silent.
Can you expand a little bit more on why it's so important to breathe correctly or fully? Um, you said that more often times than not, we're not breathing correctly, really.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that so important for us to take these full breaths and have that mind body connection?
Yeah. So I also hear from people that they hold their breath, and they might not realize they're holding their breath. I had one breather say, I realized recently that I hold my breath when I'm checking emails. Like, every time I'm checking emails, I'm just like not breathing. And what's happening is your
Yeah.
brain is not getting oxygen when you don't breathe. So there's this like side effect where if you feel foggy, or you feel unable to make a decision, or you feel like I'm lacking clarity, well, it's because your brain
Mm-hmm.
is not getting the oxygen it needs to be fully focused. So by breathing, we can change the pH of our blood. We can give our brain the oxygen it needs, which helps us process better and just stay focused.
Yeah. Thank you for expanding on that a bit more for me. That was I was like, I want to understand. I like
Yeah.
to, I think I try to grasp at, I want to understand like the whys of things. And I know that there are
Yeah.
times where, there's not an explanation. It works.
Yeah.
I had a previous episode with two women who have their own somatic practice. And I kept probing and I was like, can you explain a bit more to me? Like, how does this work? Why does it work? And
Yeah.
sometimes, I catch myself like, at the end of the day, if this modality is something that provides, comfort for you and results, like who am I to say like,
Yeah.
oh, that's woo woo. Like that's not working.
Yeah. But
um,
I love that you want to know the why, because I think it's important to know, like, it's a feeling. So if you try it and you experience it, it's a feeling, but there is science behind it. I mean, the other thing with the mind
yeah.
body connection is you're creating new neural pathways in your brain. So you get to change the way that you're thinking and therefore change the way that you're acting, feeling, and acting. So I think it's really important to kind of question and get curious about it. And I mean, there's so many other things I could say too. So I would say for anyone listening, if this started to spark your curiosity, just start to, research nervous system regulation and what breathwork can do for that, or polyvagal theory, which is something I'm
Mm.
not well enough versed in to like explain it here on the podcast, but it's something I'm super passionate about and curious about. So I'm continuing to learn about polyvagal theory and how that actually, like, there's an actual scientific evidence for how it starts to change the body.
I too am in this learning season. I've been quite curious about the mind body connection, and the few guests I've had prior to this, it just so happens that their work is heavily focused in something to do with connecting the mind and body. And I've talked about this previously, but I've been avoiding it because I don't want to pay attention to my body. I'm like deeply uncomfortable with just sitting
Mm-hmm.
with myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
know though that, okay, if you're uncomfortable with something, that means you need to go. There's something there. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've said this so many times, but I have the book, The Body Keeps a Score,
Yeah.
collecting dust on my bookshelf. I opened the first page years ago. I read the first few paragraphs, immediately started bawling. And I've said this so many times, but that book is not like an emotional, it's very clinical. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a fiction type
Yeah.
esque writing. And so I was like, why am I crying right now? What is happening? But I immediately just, nope, not today. And it's been
Mm-hmm.
collecting dust on the shelf. And recently I pulled it back out and I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to go into this, to dive into this world. But it's a bit daunting. Like I,
Yeah.
I don't know where to begin with that. And so would you say, I know you said breath work is kind of, it sounds like it's almost like an introduction to, then you could get to a place where you could do something like meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how would you, I guess, approach a beginner who's not really comfortable with perceiving their own bodies?
Yeah, I think that I would say if you're curious but you're not comfortable, just connect with someone who, whether it's breath work, whether it's somatic work, whether it's sound baths, whether it's, I mean, there's so many different
Mm-hmm.
healing modalities. Like, find the one that makes you really curious, but maybe you're still noticing that you're uncomfortable, and just have a conversation with someone so that you're not having to go it alone, and so that you can work with that individual in a way that suits your needs. So when I hear this, if someone were coming to me personally with this information, I would say, we're not going into a breathwork session. We're collaborating. I'm hearing about, we're just talking. And then maybe I have you do some breath awareness. And what I mean by that is just noticing how it feels to breathe. So maybe I guide you
Mm-hmm.
through noticing the breath move through, the nose down to the throat, into the diaphragm, the lungs, the belly, and then feeling it come back up. And I'm not asking you to close your eyes. We're just starting really simple and really small and seeing how that feels and how that resonates. And then what I would do from there is get feedback. Like, how does that feel for you? Are you ready to go a little bit deeper? If so, what are you comfortable with? What feels safe to you? Because again, for me, safety is the number one priority. When I even ask people to close their eyes, it's always an invitation. I invite you to close your
Mm-hmm.
eyes if that's accessible to you, because for individuals who've gone through trauma, and I know we've all experienced trauma on some level, but our trauma looks very different, right? So for some individuals,
Mm-hmm.
closing their eyes means they get a visualization of that really traumatic event, and it's a really scary place to be. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to have them close their eyes. we're going to work up to that. And so that's where I think breath
Yeah.
work is a practice. And I would just approach it with individuality. And for anyone who's like, it's not breath work for me, but I'm really curious about somatic healing and somatic coaching, then have that conversation with that facilitator. And I'm sure they can also provide some similar guidance.
Yeah. I love hearing the collaborative nature that you're talking about. You're building a relationship with someone. This is not, we're not just throwing you in the deep end and having
Yeah.
you figure it out on your own, but it's working up to something. So that's a really beautiful aspect of it.
I always tell
I know
people,
when
yeah,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no, go for
I was
it.
just going to say, I always tell people, like, no one knows you better than you. I don't have the answers for you. They're within you. So that's where collaboration is super important and valuable. It's like, I don't want to come in with my own agenda for anyone. I want to collaborate and hear from someone, what excites them, what scares them, what makes them feel safe, just all of those things. And collaboration has been so fun. It's one of my values, actually. So I get to tap into that through breath work. And that's why, for me, while I am a mindset and self-compassion coach, I believe breath work is actually more transformational, which is why it's always included in my coaching as well, because nobody has the answers. And like,
Yeah.
you know what you need. It's a matter of me guiding you to get there.
Right. Well, previously in our meeting, I want to touch on this. You told me that you're very passionate about curating self-care plans for people,
Mm-hmm.
or getting them to a point where they have one, and also finding or guiding people to connecting back to their purpose, or discovering what their purpose is, because there's a lot of people who might be disconnected from it. I'd love it if you could talk on that piece.
Yeah, yeah. So you have an awesome memory. Like, I love that. So self-care plans, I think, are super important. And that's kind of where my behavior analytic hat comes in, from the work that I've done for most of my career, because in that role, it was all about creating plans, creating goals, and being proactive. And so I kind of use that in developing a self-care plan, because what I've noticed happens most often is, as a society, and I would say mostly as women, we don't stop to take care of ourselves until there's a crisis, until we've kind of hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
We're not doing things
Yeah.
proactively to take care of ourselves, or we're experiencing guilt or shame or excuses or things that get in the way. So when we can curate or create a plan that's like specific and tailored to you, that's proactive, that identifies what are your triggers, like what are the triggers that kind of stress you out, you can better get ahead of like front loading. I'll give one example that's kind of related, but for me, I love tracking where I'm at in my cycle, because when I'm in the luteal phase, which I'm in right now, I tend to be lower energy. I tend to be a harsher critic to myself. I tend to feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel more sadness. It's just a harder time for me. And on
Yeah.
Tuesday of this week, I'm in this phase right now. And on Tuesday of this week, I told my husband, I just want to cry. I just want to cry. And so I was like, I'm going to cry. And I just sat in my car and I cried. I just let the tears come. And because I knew I was in this phase, I had front loaded a lot of self-compassion, and I had made sure to arrange my schedule in a way that allowed me to kind of sit with that discomfort, or sit with the sadness, or sit with feeling sorry for myself. And then I said, when that was over and I processed and I moved it through, I said, all right. And I gave myself a little hug and I said, all right, Robyn, you are loved. You are safe. You don't need to be fixed. You just need to be loved. And then I put on my big girl pants and moved on with my life. But for so much of my life, without having that plan in place, I would hit that cycle or hit that time of the month and I'd be like, what's wrong with me? I'm a terrible person.
Yeah.
right? So now I know what's going on. And so that's where I think self-care planning comes in. We can identify what our triggers are. That's my personal one. But, for anyone listening, kind of think about like, oh, what generally sets me off? And it doesn't have to be a specific time of month, but like what generally sets me off and what can I do to kind of get around that or prepare for that? Like if I know I'm going into a situation with family that might trigger me, what do I do beforehand to kind of take care of myself? And how do I like show myself some love and compassion afterwards?
I'm taking notes right now because I too have been interested in tracking my cycle by phases because I notice, I really only have like women, we really only have like 1 week of peace
Yeah.
every month. Every other phase is just trash. And,
Yeah.
I think it's so important that I talk with my other friends and they're like, yeah, that luteal phase, I'm like in a deep, deep depression. And then like 2 weeks later, you're like, oh man, that was so crazy. I'm good
Yeah.
now. Like, let's go
Yeah.
party. But
Yeah.
it's so important to be aware of those things because I too in the past would get stuck in that like, oh, I'm a terrible person. Like, what's going on? I'm not enough. But having that awareness and like you said, front loading, I love that. Front loading the compassion for yourself. You can prepare to just take care of yourself and, hey, it's okay. Have a little bit of
Yeah.
grace.
Yeah.
That's great.
I
I
love it.
also what I'm curious, like what kind of tools do you use to track or not necessarily just your cycle, but any kind of triggers? Like, do you use a journal, or is there any
Mm-hmm.
kind of apps that you use?
Yeah, so I use an app for cycle tracking, and that's just helpful to know like what phase I'm in. And I tend to write it out on my calendar. So I just put like an initial of like each day, and it's not perfect
Mm-hmm.
science because our bodies change and fluctuate, but it's really good to just have a
Right.
general idea. So I use that, and I'm a big like I've got paper everywhere around here. Like I'm a big like pen and paper person still. I'm an elder millennial, so it's hard for me to move all digital. And I'm sure there's amazing apps out there that can help for this. But I like to use a lot of journaling to create the
Mm-hmm.
self-care plan, to do reflect, to notice like what showed up for me and to reflect. The name of my business is Reflect
Yeah.
and Refine. So we do a lot of journaling in the work that I do.
Yeah. I I'm a former English teacher. Pen and paper, just something about it. I think people kind of overlook or underestimate the power of putting your thoughts onto paper. You
Mm-hmm.
just don't get the same kind of release just typing words on a screen.
Yeah.
There's something almost cathartic of seeing it physically on a sheet of paper. And so I'm a huge proponent of writing things out in a journal as well. What's that process like for you? Is it a daily practice? Is it in those moments where you feel triggered? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I wish it was a daily practice. I am working up towards that, or I'm working to make it more consistent. Sometimes I notice that I'm off track because I haven't been doing the things that make me feel good. Like I haven't been
Mm-hmm.
breathing myself or having someone facilitate a session for me, or I haven't been journaling, or I haven't been connecting with the earth. Like, I love to start my morning like just barefoot in the grass and like connecting with Mother Earth. I like to um, like practice gratitude by saying what I'm grateful for. And actually, my one of my daily planners has like what I'm grateful for, and so I get to do
Mm-hmm.
that piece every day. But like the journaling itself, I'm just still working up to. Um, but when I
Yeah.
notice I'm off track or like, oh, something's funky, I stop and I'm like, well, duh, Robyn, you haven't been doing any of the things that you know feel good, like, or that make you feel better.
Yeah.
Like even on Tuesday when I was crying, it's like, yeah, I'm in my luteal phase, but also no one's held a breathwork session for me for over a week. I haven't written my gratitude list. I've said it out loud, but I haven't actually written it pen to paper. And I
Yeah.
haven't journaled since Sunday. So yeah, like it's tough, right? And we're all
Yeah.
navigating, time management and those sort of things. It doesn't have to be perfect, but when you have this level of awareness, then you can get back on track and you can process quicker. So I actually will
Yeah.
do some journaling today. I actually have a self-love club
Yeah.
today, which is an awesome opportunity for anyone listening. It's a free community for women to come together. We share our gratitude, we share our wins. Sometimes we do journaling, we do a quick breath work. Today, I think I'm going to ask people to share how they've been taking care of themselves, like what are they
Mm-hmm.
doing to be proactive in their plan. But we sometimes do journaling in there, and I think I'll find a prompt so that we can all do that together.
I love that. So, Self Love Club, is that like a virtual community part of
Yeah.
Reflect and Refine?
Yep. It's online. It's
Cool.
on Zoom. It's on the last Thursday of every month at 12 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, totally. That's such a great. I love that you're creating this community of women, kind of like a solace, like a safe place for people to come and gather and just talk openly about their wins and their challenges. I think we
Yeah.
need that. I need that. So
Yeah. Well,
I
come.
will
Please come.
definitely be looking. Yeah, yes, I'll
Yeah.
definitely attend.
Yeah, it would be awesome. And anyone out there that it resonates with, and everyone's welcome. And every month I have new people joining, and some people don't come back or they can't come to the next one. It's totally fine. We'll do like introductions and build community. And then I have some people who are like a regular, they show up every month and
Hmm.
kind of help co-facilitate too. Because again,
Yeah.
I'm just a guide. I don't have all the answers, but I just want to create this space where we can create some community and some safety.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I wanted to affirm what you're saying before that. You talked about how you noticed, oh, of course I feel this way because I haven't been maintaining all of the things like my self care plan, right? And it made me laugh because I was yesterday, I had a raging headache. I
Mm.
just felt so just bleh. Like I was like, I feel like a beluga whale. Like I was just the worst critic of myself. And I was sitting on the couch and I'm like, did I drink any water today? Like,
Mm.
did I I didn't work out. I usually work out. That also helps me in the morning too. I didn't drink my water. I barely ate anything that was like nutrient dense. So it makes you really think like, yeah, there's a lot of things and kind of viewing ourselves as like our bodies are something that we need to maintain and fuel with good things, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
having that awareness, like checking in with yourself, taking inventory, have I done these things? Did I drink my water? Have I taken my happy pills or whatever it is?
Right.
And I think that's really important to have those check-ins so then instead you're not criticizing yourself or your character, but hey, it's not me. There's not something internally wrong with me. It's that I just haven't taken care of myself appropriately. And I feel like
Yeah.
self care is such a huge buzzword too. We're like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
self care. Put on your cute little face mask and watch a rom com or two. But
Yeah.
I want to know like what is your definition of self-care that's actually effective and it's not just putting on some nice scented lotion at night.
So I like to define self care as like literally that, like taking an active role to take care of yourself. I believe it's taking a proactive approach to take care of your own well being. And I love that you mentioned like we think it's putting on this mask and watching this rom com, or we think it's going to get the massage or getting our nails done or having a night out with our friends. And those things can be self care. But I think that the most important thing for if you're developing your self care plan is to identify what is most important to you. Like, what are your values? Who and what is important to you? And how can you align your self care plan to meet the needs of those values? So, for me,
Mm,
my values, some of my values are community, connection, my family, my health. And so my non-negotiables are getting movement every day, drinking water, nourishing my body, taking time to take a few deep breaths. Even if I can't do a full breathwork session, can I spend 2 minutes of my walk just practicing my breath and staying connected to my body? So it can be really small moments that help regulate our nervous system, improve our mood. And while those other things can be really nice, they can also be really expensive. And so I think comparison culture interferes and tells you like, oh, it has to look a certain way. And it's like, there are so many ways to come into contact with self-care that are free, that don't have to break the bank, right? Like getting outside in nature, that's where we're meant to be. We're meant to be outside, getting sunlight, getting movement, putting our feet in the grass, connecting with water. Like all of those things are free, regardless of where you are. You have some sort of nature around you. Get outside. Get some movement. Moving your body is free. It doesn't have to be exercise if that's not your thing, but can you dance? Can you twerk? Can you shake? Shake it. Like, can you do whatever that feels good? And I think that's the best part about having a plan is it's just that. It's a plan. No one's expecting perfection. I'm here as what I'd like to consider myself as a mentor, and I will be fully transparent, if I haven't already admitted it, that I don't stick to my plan 100% of the time, because I'm a human and like life interferes, and my son needs something and the school called and I got a flat tire and my mom needs me to come over and like all of these things, right? But the plan allows us to have more awareness so we can check back in and get back on track. So when this week has been hard for me, it's like, duh, haven't been doing the things. Also in this phase, I did the front loading of the compassion. I held myself with kindness after, but now I need to make sure I get back on track with at least my non-negotiable tasks. And for me, that's movement.
Right.
I try to get 5,000 steps a day. I'd love to get 10,000, but it's just not realistic. So I'm like, let me set the bar a little bit lower. For me, it's 5 minutes of exercise, because I'm trying to get rid of all or nothing thinking. I used to be that person that was like, oh, if I'm not working out for an hour, it's not worth it. And it's like, well, 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes, right? So 5 minutes of some sort of active movement, drinking my water. I love water. So like, that's pretty easy for me, but like making sure I get enough of it, and then nourishing my body. So making sure I have a plan for like, what am I eating? Because when we don't plan, then we're just going to be like, oh, what do I have? Is it actually nourishing? Or like, I'm just going to pick something up that, one, ends up costing more money in the long run, and two, is just leading to inflammation and just making you feel not great. But there's also a time and a place where like you get to choose your level of hard, right? And sometimes you need things like that. So it's just holding yourself with that compassion as these things in life come up.
Yeah. And I love that you highlighted the aspect of expectations for yourself. Like, it's so important to have realistic expectations, because life happens, like you said. Sometimes I think, like, again, as women, we're tough critics on ourselves. We're really hard. Like, oh man, I told myself I was going to do this. I had a self-care plan, and look at me now. But it's so important to just manage those expectations and be like, realistically, again, the 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes, and just celebrating those wins, like you said. So that's great. As we wrap up our episode here today, one last question I have for you is, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who is struggling with their purpose or their self-worth, what would that advice be?
So like, one piece of advice, I think what it would come down to is I would encourage you not to quit on yourself. The longest relationship you're ever going to have is going to be with yourself. So don't give up on yourself. Stay connected with who you are, stay connected with what's important to you, and stay committed to the journey. And something that they say in breathwork that I'll leave with the listeners is, may you learn to treat the journey like the destination. And that just feels so good.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Robyn, how can our audience connect with you and learn more about your work?
I would love for anyone who this resonates with to follow along. So I'm on Instagram at Coach Robyn _. So note that my name is spelled ROBYN. So that's Coach Robyn _. You can find everything that we talked about on there, including the links to the Self-Love Club. All you have to do is click on the link, add it to your calendar. I have offerings on there for ways to work with me through breathwork or through coaching. But I think most importantly, I would just love for you to follow along and for me to connect with you so that I can continue to build this community. And if it resonates, you belong in this community.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Robyn, for sharing your incredible journey and the insights with us today. Your dedication to just helping women through breathwork and just everything with the self-compassion, it's just great and so inspiring. And we deeply appreciate the valuable work that you do and the positive impact that you're making. So thank you for being with us, for your openness, and just your commitment to healing and empowering women.
My goodness, my pleasure. Thank you so much for all you're doing too, Michelle. You're amazing and incredible and wise beyond your years. So it's been such an honor and a privilege to be here.
Well, those of you listening, if you'd like to stay connected with Robyn and follow along with her content, learn more about her work, and maybe take advantage of a breathwork session that she offers, please go show her some love. You can find Robyn's socials and links all in the show notes. Thanks, Robyn, and thank you everyone for listening. And as always, I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.